Are you ready to step into the future? A future where your PC not only understands you, but also anticipates your needs. Well, as AI continues to revolutionise our digital experiences, the emergence of AI PCs brings forth a blend of innovation and complexity. So today I'm joined by Eric Shulze, Vice President of Product Management at Trend Micro. And together we're going to try and unravel how AI is reshaping the tech landscape right under our fingertips. And with AI PCs integrating generative AI more seamlessly than ever, what do you need to know to navigate this new terrain securely and confidently? The costs of hosting a daily show for 140,000 monthly listeners can be significant, and I'd like to take a moment to thank those who make it possible for me to keep delivering this content every day to you all. And I also want to talk about the fact that legacy DRM failed to securely enable external collaboration on sensitive files. And I think it's important to recognise that organisations in this digital age face a somewhat risk-trust contradiction. Yep, they must share content with untrusted third parties while also protecting that data. So it's time for a more modern DRM solution, one that solves this dilemma but without compromising security and productivity. So, collaborators, imagine editing files externally without losing control. Stream zero-latency video renditions to authorised users, but without any actual file transfers needed. The co-author can view it remotely while you retain full ownership. Ultimately, they never leave your environment, so you can say goodbye to data leakage risks and experience seamless editing across all file types, not just native applications, without any plugins required. So say goodbye to deployment headaches, file transfer risk, collaboration barriers, and all those productivity constraints, and experience a more modern way to collaborate on sensitive content, sacrificing control or security. And you can do all that by visiting kiteworks.com to get started. And with my thank yous out of the way, I'm now officially excited to introduce you to today's guest. Well, buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to Taipei, where today's guest is waiting to join me. So a massive warm welcome to the show, Eric. Can you tell everyone listening a little about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Neil. My name is Eric Shulze. I am the VP of Product Management for Trend Micro, covering our consumer division of products. So these would be things that your listeners and our customers run on their home or personal devices.
It's a pleasure to have you join me on the podcast today. I know it's quite late where you are and you've stayed on to talk with me, but just to set the scene for our conversation today, there's so much talk of AI at the moment and hype around it. I always try and look beyond that hype. So can you begin by explaining what AI PCs are and how they integrate generative AI into everyday tech landscape? Something we're hearing more and more about. I've seen a few stories about Apple, etc., and their next PCs and the processes behind them. But can you tell me about what you're seeing and what that means?
Yeah, it's a great question. So let's start with like you said, the definition or what we consider an AI PC. Depends on what definition you use. There really isn't a hard set one in the industry that I found. Each major company kind of has one that differs, but the commonalities between them are relatively simple. It's a PC or a personal computer that has a specialized processing unit for doing AI type workloads. You'll commonly see these referred to as NPUs or neural processing units, meaning that they are very, very good and very efficient at running neural network-based workloads, which is what a generative AI or LLM is in general. So they integrate generative AI by running it locally on the device instead of having to send all that data to the cloud. And why that matters to a lot of customers and consumers is a couple of reasons. One is speed. When things are local, you don't have latency or cost of going to the cloud. It's also more private because the data is not leaving your device. If it's done correctly, it's all done locally. So you have, and I know we'll probably dig in a bit deeper there in a bit. And then the third reason is just the speed, because you have it locally, you have the computing power, why not use it? So it comes to the law of the land, as it's sometimes referred to.
You're talking to me today in Taiwan, and of course that is the chip central of the universe right now. And with the competition among big chip makers to create that best AI PC, are there any potential security or privacy concerns that end users should be aware of when it comes to an on-device AI? Anything they should be thinking about?
So yeah, I am in Taipei right now. I would say it's not as much around the chip specifically. I think all three of the ones specifically on the AI PC side today all have their benefits for sure. In terms of the security and privacy, I would say that definitely depends on the application that the users are interacting with, whether it be the built-in operating system-based applications, or if it's something they download from a third-party independent software vendor, things like that. In terms of what are they, one would be, can they access your sensitive data on that device, right? We all have personal data on our device, maybe tax returns, maybe national identification numbers, etc. And can this generative AI or this application access that data to help build, better responses for you? The other would be, can something edit or impact that application where it could make that application or that generative AI application return a incorrect result or a compromised result, maybe changing some variable from like hours to days, which could give misleading information, for example.
And another reason I was excited to get you on the podcast was I was reading a recent Trend Micro survey, and it revealed that 68% of respondents were worried about AI's role in spreading misinformation. What measures can be taken to mitigate these concerns, which you uncovered in your survey?
So I look at it from a couple of ways. One is, what data, like what's the source of this information? So for example, is it coming from a reputable source? Is it a trusted information source that, you or your listeners have validated it from? Is it coming from just a random post on social media where it's some person or some entity with a weird headshot? Or is it a, reporter that you know and trust? That would be one. A second would be the good old mantra of trust but verify. If you see it, is there a way to verify that information is accurate? Can you double check or check that against another source, for example? Are you seeing multiple news outlets reporting the same thing or sharing that same data? And then the third I would say is always be skeptical. If it sounds too good to be true, it may be, right? So trust your gut that if something's like, hey, this is free, or hey, come here, you can win this, be skeptical and verify that or go into it with that skeptical mind just to make sure, because otherwise it's too easy to get sucked into that dopamine boost in the brain by I won something or that when you don't know for sure if it's real.
And also in that survey, I think it was 58% of respondents are concerned about AI misuse of their images and likeness. Elsewhere, outside of the survey, I'm hearing more, as a podcast, I'm hearing more about voice being misused and voice fraud. So how can consumers better protect themselves from such potential misuse of their biometrics or their voice or their appearance or so much other things too?
No, it's a great question, Neil. I think the first would be, images is be careful what you share. We live in the age of social media, and I know we all like to share with our friends and family, but can you control or be careful what you share and, how you control your privacy settings, right? Are you sharing this image globally? If it's a landscape picture, something like that, great. But if it's starting to you or your family or your friends, do you have your privacy settings set to kind of protect that or limit who could access that to make sure it's not getting vacuumed up by model generators or by malicious actors that are using that to try to imitate them? And when it comes to voice, voice is definitely an interesting one. There are tools coming onto the market regularly to help detect and produce this. And one is verifying where that source is coming from, right? So your voice, obviously, it's possible to capture, right? You'll probably know this better than even I do, because as being this, your voice is all over your podcasts.
Yeah.
So it is possible to get these samples. So making sure that your friends and family are aware of having tools to validate that it's really you if they hear things that don't sound like you, and having that skeptical attitude that we talked about previously.
And as AI does become more integral part of our PCs and even phones and tablets, etc., when we're looking at things like Microsoft new line of AI PCs, what are the key privacy and safety elements that need to be addressed to ensure that consumer trust? Anything they should be looking out for?
I think a couple would be, does the company have, or does the entity have, a privacy policy, an AI, acceptable use policy, or guidelines of how they are using AI to make sure that, those align with our listeners' value statements? Are they comfortable with that use of AI, potentially using their data? Another would be, are they protecting their sensitive information? So, like I said earlier, we all store that information on our devices in some way or form. How do we make sure that data is either segmented or protected off where it can't get sucked into these new applications? And then just being careful what we store and what applications we use. Make sure we're getting applications from reputable sources, right? Whenever there's new technology advances like this, you'll see a lot of new companies come up, maybe legitimate, maybe someone just in their garage coming up with a new idea that they want to test. Do they have that rigorous process in place regarding software lifecycle to make sure that application is secure, that they have properly tested it to make sure it's not using vulnerable libraries or some other types of supply chain attacks upstream? So just making sure you're using legitimate applications from well-known, well-rated, et cetera, to really make sure that your base is there. And then also looking at security tools like the ones that Trend Micro make that can help add some of these protection layers if you are using tools or you are going down this path, making sure you have that extra layer on there to ensure that application is doing what it's supposed to be, and that it's that there is that extra guard around it.
And it is so tricky. I mean, we look at someone like Apple, a privacy-first company towards their consumers in every way, but they've recently been accused of scraping YouTube to train their AI. There's so much going on, and almost a gold rush of all these companies scraping online content. I also read somewhere that I think the data that they can train AI learning models could run out as soon as 2026. Is this big AI gold rush out there almost, isn't it?
It is. There's a crazy amount of that. And I mean, when it comes to AI, especially training, data is king. So you'll see lots of things of how do you source data? Where are you sourcing data? Are you ethically sourcing your data to train your models there? So that's something too where that gets a little bit deeper, because now you have to look at what models or what AI is the application that you're running using, and digging down deeper, which even as a consumer myself, I may not do. So that's where we go back once again to that reputation of that vendor where you're getting that software from, and then also potentially adding a layer of security around that to make sure any of those gaps that software might have are being filled, right? And things like that, where Trend Micro provides.
100% with you. It's an entirely different subject for a different day. And at Trend Micro, though, how are you enhancing security and privacy for users of AI PCs? I know it's a topic very close to your heart. So what are you working on here?
It is. My team's been working tirelessly on this, and we've announced some new things around the Computex big hardware show here in Taiwan about a month and a half ago now, I think. We announced some privacy-focused features that actually had a rare thing in our industry, where we were able to enhance the security and privacy for our users and actually decrease user friction. So we introduced a feature for email in this example specifically, where we are able to scan the user's email locally on the device using that NPU. And we don't have to send the email to the cloud like we used to. So previously, Neil, from Europe, you're familiar with the GDPR, I'm quite sure, where we have data collection notices we have to accept. And, from an ethical and transparency perspective, we want to make sure our customers always know what data we're collecting. So we previously would have to ask the user's consent to scan their email, because we were using, AI in the cloud to do that. But now with the new power of the AI PCs, we've been able to bring that functionality locally onto the device, where now we don't have to ask the users permission to collect their data because we're not collecting their data, right? It's actually being all done on their device. So like I said, we were able to raise security and privacy because now the user doesn't have to worry about those notices or be worried about their data going to the cloud, which also reduced the friction because now we don't have to prompt them to opt in for data collection. Another one would be, that's how we're using AI to do better security. But we're also doing a second part where we're actually making sure we're using security for AI. So adding those protections that I mentioned earlier around protecting the local application, protecting that knowledge base that the local application may be using or the model that the local application would be using to make sure that outside actors can't tamper with it or, tweak the data in the database to return a malicious URL. So, if you ask for what's my bank and it returns, a slightly different link than you're used to, but you don't notice it because it's trying to do a scam or something like that. So, Trend's been looking at this from both angles, right? How can we use AI to better secure our customers? But also how can we make sure that our customers can use AI securely?
And you've provided so many great examples already, but just to drill down one last time, anybody listening that may be considering buying a new PC, an AI PC, they're looking at all their different options in front of them. Any other ways that they can differentiate between those AI PCs that prioritize security and privacy and those that might not have those robust measures in place? Anything else they should be looking out for?
Yeah, I would say the key things, we covered already. Obviously, it's hard, especially when you're going to, retail locations to differentiate those things. So just making sure that the PCs you have are obviously coming from reputable companies with legitimate versions of the software, right? Obviously, that's what we would always want anyway. And just that would be probably the biggest thing. And then looking to, add on those extra security measures if you have concerns or just want to make sure that a little more peace of mind for sure in this new world, because this is definitely an infrastructure shift that I think we're all excited about the possibilities that and all the opportunities it opens. We just want to make sure that everyone can use it safely and securely to get this new power.
And I'm glad we've approached things from a cautious standpoint today, but indeed there is so much excitement around the road ahead as well. So if we do look into the future, would you see as the future of AI and consumer technology, anything excite you? And also, how can the industry balance that innovation, that exciting innovation, with that using it safely, securely, and maintaining privacy standards, etc.?
I'm excited for some of the ideas that I've seen of this, of what we can do, the way we can personalize some of these new features with local AI, right? Where we used to have to do all this in the cloud, being able to bring it there. I think it's going to open up opportunities for lots and lots of innovation in the software space to personalize. Maybe it be interacting with people with disabilities or bringing in allowing people to be more comfortable sharing certain personal information because they know it's going to be processed locally and not put into a massive cloud data bank. Those are where I'm really, really excited to see this innovation. I think where, as the industry needs to balance though is, can we come out with these new use cases, maybe in a more controlled way, or hey, do you need to collect all that data right away? Or can we work our way up to that as we learn more and we experience more? But ultimately, you always have to push the limits, right? That's what drives some of the best innovation. So can we innovate and then make sure that we're just innovating with privacy in mind versus innovating in a vacuum without thinking about that till after the fact? Because that's when it gets harder. People get confused. So we want to make sure we're innovating fast. We're just keeping in the back of our mind that consumers, myself, we care about our security and our privacy, especially in the day and age of how we see things used in other ways sometimes. So.
And we've been quite serious today, talking about everything from safety and security and the exciting work that you're doing in AI. But outside of all that, if I have a quick scroll down your LinkedIn, I can see you've had quite a varied career, an exciting career, successful career, and you also get to travel a lot. So I've got to ask before I let you go, what is the funniest or most interesting story that you've picked up along the way? There's probably a few you can share, a few you can't, but what can you share?
I think one that comes to mind, Neil, would be kind of how I got into the career, into where I am now in the first place. So yeah, as you probably see there, I come from the States. Specifically, I come from Wisconsin, and I went to university and actually got a degree in zoology. And you might say zoology and IT, that's a little bit of a jump. I actually doubled down on that jump after I got my degree and moved to Hawaii. Spent 6 months in Hawaii working as a dolphin trainer. And people are like, how, like, dolphin training, IT, are we talking like polar opposites in the world? But as weird as it sounds, actually, that taught me a lot. That's made me successful in my career, because there's lots of weird things around behavior and human interaction and non-verbal behavior. Being able to read people via nonverbal communication. That the dolphins were able to help me really grow that skill early in my career. That now when I go meet with customers, if I'm in a boardroom with C-levels as well as engineers, I can read the room to make sure everyone's engaged and stuff. So as weird as it sounds, it actually prepared me more for my current job than I ever could have imagined. And makes for an interesting story for sure.
Wow, what an incredible story. I absolutely love that. And one of the reasons I love love recording this podcast every day is hearing stories like that. I mean, the synergies between zoology, dolphin training, and a tech career, phenomenal, man. But for anyone listening just wants to find out more information about the things we talked about today, your work at Trend Micro, or connect with you or your team, where would you like to point everyone listening?
Yes, I would point them back to our corporate website, so trendmicro.com. And if you want to see specifically what our consumer team is doing, trendmicro.com/home. And if you're looking for me on the socials or LinkedIn, it is linkedin.com/eShulze, my last name, SHULZE, on most platforms.
Well, we covered so much today about how Trend Micro are among the first to put user safety at the forefront, about talking about things like AI application protection, malicious AI content protection, the excitement for the future. But if I'm honest, 2,000 interviews from now, you're going to be my dolphin zoology guy, and the difference and the synergies that brings with the tech industry as well. Fantastic story that I will never forget. So thank you so much for taking the time to share that with me today.
Hey, Neil, thanks for having us on. Greatly appreciate it.
I think it's clear that the evolution of AI PCs is not just about technological advancements, but it's also about ensuring the security and privacy don't fall by the wayside. And with Trend Micro at the forefront of safeguarding consumer interests in this age of AI, kudos to them for the great work that they're doing. But what about you listening? What steps are you going to take to better protect your own digital safety? This is where I invite you to share your thoughts and continue this conversation by engaging with us. You can do that by connecting with me on socials at Neil C. Hughes, or send me a quick email on techblogwriter@outlook.com. Please let me know, how will you adapt to an AI-powered future? Look forward to hearing from you all. But that's it for today. So thank you for listening as always, and until next time, don't be a stranger.